from Toronto to Tokyo, and from Thonia to Syrinx, this is The Basement, your companion to the Ready Player One novel. Join our hosts each episode for complete chapter breakdowns and deep dives into the pop culture references through a series of challenges and homework assignments. The Basement is the Ready Player One podcast for people who love things. And now, please welcome Albert and the rest of the Gunters for this week's episode.
Hello, Gunters. You are in the basement. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is Cutscene. There is no spoon. Tonight starts the very first chapter of Ready Player 2. We've got a very special guest with us tonight that we're excited to bring on. But before we do, let me bring on the guy you all know and love. He's here with me every week, has been here for a few months now, I should say. Mr. Will Wilkins. Will, welcome to the show, sir.
Hey, it's good to see you, Albert. So I'd like to thank you for giving me that notoriety as your special guest this evening. But, technically I've been co-hosting long enough that, it should just be pedestrian at this point.
Yeah, right. No, I'm actually referring to someone completely different. So you guys know him. He is the best-selling author of Ready Player One, Armada, and his new book, Ready Player Two, is just 8 days old at this point. Please welcome to the show, Mr. Ernie Cline. Ernie, welcome to the show, sir.
Hey, guys. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for being on The Basement, and thank you for finding the time. Honestly, I know you've got a really busy schedule. You've got a ton of stuff. I know you've been in interviews all day today. Thank you for making the time to be with us tonight.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me. It's been almost like a year, I think, since I last saw you at it was a screening of the movie, and I've been meaning to do this forever. I'm so grateful to you guys for keeping the Ready Player One fandom alive in between the books, and I knew this was, the one podcast I had to do, so I'm excited.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And before we get started, I want a quick shout out to everybody that's with us tonight, including the official RPO Gunter Clan of Facebook, the Ready Player One Gunter Basement Facebook page, the Panamanian Gunters from Panama. Their guys are here. We've got a number of folks from Europe. I know there's some Denmark folks, some Germany folks that are early in the morning for them. They've decided to join us as well, including the Ready Player One Reddit page. Those guys there have been really supportive of the show and certainly this show tonight. And then finally, the Basement supporters and our Patreon members who are our paying members of the podcast. So thank you, everybody. There's a ton of Gunters here and Gunter clans from all over the place.
People. I wish I could see you guys. Thank you guys for tuning in.
Yep. Now, before we begin, I believe there are some congratulations that are in order here. And Will, can you give us the latest on exactly how well Ready Player 2 is doing?
Well, it is official. As of just an hour ago, Ready Player 2 is #1 in print hardcover, #1 in audiobook sales, and #1 in combined print and ebook sales, and an instant New York Times bestseller at #1. Not to mention, over 10 million players have participated in the Ready Player 2 treasure hunt on Roblox, including my youngest daughter. So congrats, Ernie.
Thank you, guys. That's amazing. I heard also that Ready Player One is back on the paperback.
Nice.
List for the first time in a while. So it's amazing. This is my first time ever having #1 in hardcover. Ready Player One hit #1 before, but it was not until it was out. But this is my first #1 hardcover. That's really exciting.
Very cool.
That's cool. It'll happen tonight.
Yeah.
You guys are good luck for me. This is amazing.
All right. Well, we're going to get started here. And again, congratulations to you. The success was all well-deserved.
Exciting.
We're going to get started here. Before we get into this, just a reminder, we are going to give away, and the green screen's going to cut it out here probably, but I'm giving away a signed copy of Ready Player One to somebody tonight. If you could, just please subscribe to it's not going to be you, Will. So subscribe to the show on YouTube and make sure you put in the comments, big bucks, no whammies. You got to put that in the comments. Those are the two things that you need to do in order to enter to win the free signed copy of Ready Player 2. So without further ado, tonight we're going to, for those of you that are joining us for the first time, not familiar with the show, typically what we do is we go through all the narrative of each chapter, and then we break down the pop culture references, talk about some trivia, just reminisce about some of these things. So really kind of just geek out. So let's start with the narrative. And I want to start with we're going to start with the very beginning here. So again, we're covering Cutscene. And Cutscene opens with Wade finally logging back into the Oasis after having been away for 9 days. And I remember when I read this, I went back to the original Ready Player One novel in that very last page where it says it occurred to me that for the first time in a long time, as I could remember, I had absolutely no desire to log back into the Oasis. And Ernie, when I read this, I remember reading this thinking, wow, he's not going to come back to the Oasis for like weeks, maybe even months. And lo and behold, in Ready Player 2, it's like 9 days he's like been away from it, which kind of speaks to the power, right, of just how addicting the Oasis is. But I want to ask you a personal question. What's the longest you've ever gone unplugged, like completely unplugged from the internet?
Oh, wow. Since the well, it would be the time in my life before the invention of the internet. But once I got a hold of it, I don't know. I think I've been. It's hard. I don't think I've ever taken like a hiatus where I'm like just gonna go offline. But probably, when I was in Hawaii, as a gift to me and my family, Steven Spielberg let us go to Hawaii. And I was not on the internet at all the whole time I was there.
Good for you.
Yeah, that would probably be it. Yeah, I knew that probably like a week and a half would be about the max, especially with the company, and also his avatar had just been made, all powerful. He had all these new abilities that he hadn't had a chance to try out yet, and I knew that would be like, there's no way he couldn't, take the robes of Anorak out for a test run.
Absolutely.
And also now he's one of the heads of the Oasis and is in control of it. So it's not like he can go cold turkey and leave the Oasis behind forever. And this is what he was working for, was to be one of the heads of the company. So I tried to strike a balance. Hopefully it wasn't disappointing too many people who thought he was done.
He was one and done.
But what I meant by that last line is, like, for the first time ever being in the real world, he wasn't itching to get back in the Oasis, like, as long as he could remember, so 9 days is a lot for a kid who's, been pretty much wanting to spend every waking moment in the Oasis since he was, 2 or 3 years old. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And you mentioned earlier about him wanting to try the new robes out. It's like, if you've ever played an MMO, let's just use World of Warcraft, right? You level up. The first thing you want to go do is try your new abilities, right? You're not going to just sit there and be idle. You're going to put another hour into it to go test it all out. So very similar to that.
Yeah, I thought it was actually, I had an opposite take on that. If I knew I was going to be omnipotent, in the Oasis, I'm going to say I had like 9 solid minutes in me. Right?
Before you log back
just
in.
Long enough to relieve myself, and then I'm coming right back.
right.
This love thing, I'm going to put this on the burner for just a second.
Yeah, let me test this out.
Yeah. Well, also for Wade, the Oasis is a real crutch. Even though he has grown throughout the story and had to kind of confront the real world a little bit, he's still not completely comfortable there, and he's still, I think, even in his interactions with his friends at the opening of Ready Player 2, he's still a little socially awkward and uncomfortable. And that, he talks about that later in the story, where he's after being, out in the real world and being around Artemis or Samantha for a week or so, he's already starting to get nervous that the cracks in his, social awkwardness are starting to show. And he would miss that filter that he's relied on to interact with his friends for a long time. So it would be a learning curve. And also, when that was the other thing that occurred to me, is being a teenager and having all this responsibility and fame and money all thrust on you. It would be like a triple, and, being in your first relationship, it would be like a quadruple whammy that he would be dealing with. All these, he's out of his depth, personally and in his relationships and professionally. This new role, he's not, wise enough or mature enough at all to be have this much power and to be able to make decisions that affect everybody around the world. So I wanted to explore all that and show, see how it played out, because I think it parallels what's going on with a lot of the tech companies right now. They're struggling with the implications of their technology and how it affects day-to-day people's lives and political landscape and everything.
Yeah.
So,
we're going to come back. I want to touch on that a little bit later when we get to social media. So keep that thought. So at this point, he's logging in for the first time as, again, like you said, the new owner of the GSS. More importantly, he's got God mode thanks to Halliday. He avoids the mob that's waiting for him and teleports into Anorak's study in Castle Thonia, where he finds yet another Easter egg, a silver Easter egg, but this time there's something different about it. Etched on the surface is GSS 13th floor, Vault 42, 8675-309. He flips out, logs out, grabs the egg and runs down to the 13th floor, opens up the deposit box number 42, and in there's another egg that's similar to the virtual one, only this one has no markings. He sees a thumbprint, opens that, puts his thumb on there, the egg splits open, and inside he finds a headset. Now, I envisioned this headset as I was reading it, like my mind immediately went to the squids in Strange Days, right? But just a little bit longer because it goes to the back of the neck and the retractable things on the side.
Wired. It's not wireless. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you, like, where's the wireless option for this? Why? Do we have one coming soon?
Maybe that seemed like too big of a leap. Like it's so much data and so much information being sent back and forth between your cerebral cortex. A brain-computer interface, I think, is in our future, but a wireless one is even further out because our wireless technology would have to get a lot better. So I envision it being, at least in this early iteration of it, this first iteration of it, that it would need a fiber optic connection to send that much data back and forth. And that, but clearly there are moments in the story when he's using a wireless connection, but my thought was the connection between the user's brain and the Oasis console would have to be hardline.
Yep. No, that makes sense. And good on you for using fiber optics. You didn't say like Cat 6 or something, right? Because everybody would have. There's no way, Ernie. No way.
No, not with O&I. I did. I think I used that in Armada, but we'll stay on topic.
Yeah, okay. So at this point, the lid turns into a video monitor, and he gets another video from Halliday, only this time he's in the flesh. Halliday tells him that he's using, quote, the world's first functional, non-invasive brain-computer interface dubbed the ONI, or Oasis Neural Interface. This device not only allows you to control your avatar in the Oasis, simply by thinking about it, but it allows the wearer to record their personal experiences in the real world. It allows someone to share what they see, hear, smell, taste, and feel with someone else, since they're plugging directly into the old noodle. Now, I know you've spoken about this a few times recently here, but is this really the final frontier, in your opinion, in terms of where we're going with virtual reality and reality immersion?
I do. Well, I think once you have, it's something that's already being developed, the brain-computer interface. They're already doing human trials, and there are already rudimentary versions of it with like people with missing limbs are able to control prosthetic replacement limbs directly with their brain and, grasp things and pick them up. And there's already even an ocular brain-computer interface that some blind people are able to see in a limited way through an interface between cameras mounted on their head and images fed low resolution into their brain, and that's been going on for like at least a decade. So it's really easy to see how fast our technology evolves. Like in the past 25 years, you add 25 years from 2020. It seems clear that there's going to be major progression in the brain-computer interface. And so I wanted to explore the ramifications of that technology because I do think it's the final stage in the evolution of video games and virtual reality. Once you make a simulation that is indistinguishable from reality and maybe even improves on it a little, then you don't need to make it any better than that.
Right, we're done.
That's the end point because any improvement beyond that, if you can already completely fool all of your senses, then it's full immersion. And that line, plug right into the old noodle, that's from the movie Brainstorm, which is one of the films
you skipped ahead. We definitely knew that one. You even do the when you mention it, you always do the old noodle directly from the film.
Oh yeah. No, that's one of my favorite movies of all time. I actually got to meet the writer. Bruce Joel Rubin is one of my favorite screenwriters at a screenwriting conference here in Austin, and I just geeked out on him about Brainstorm to a ridiculous degree. I don't think he'd ever met a Brainstorm super fan, but that was, that movie was so far ahead of its time.
Absolutely.
And Strange Days is another one of my favorite movies, but it owes a huge debt of gratitude, I think, to Brainstorm.
Yeah, man, you're stealing all our questions. I actually have a question. No, you're good. I'm just joking. I have a question about whether or not you met Rubin, because I'm like, he has got to have met him, and if he hasn't, he needs to. But we'll table that here in just a second. All right, so see, and I love this line here. It says, through sheer force of will and brain power, he once again turned science fiction into science fact without much regard for the long-term consequences. And I was immediately reminded of Ian Malcolm in Jurassic Park when he says that your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could they didn't stop to think if they should, right?
Well, once again, that's a terrible impression, Albert. It's a terrible Jeff Goldblum impression.
Yeah.
All right, that's fair.
To do. But no, that was a really like prescient line, and it's still true. And like I said, we're seeing it right now. We're seeing like this several different new technologies, the internet being one, and we've seen like decade by decade how the first decade of the internet, and now we're into maybe the second and a half decade. And social media is only about 10, 15 years old. So, and only now, after the technology has kind of been in our lives for 10, 15 years, are we starting to see the drastic, sociological effects of it on people. So, and, heads of tech companies being called before Congress to answer for, all the changes that this technology is wreaking on and I think that's going to be a constant push and pull between, our technological innovation and then how it affects our lives and how we try to rein it in and, and keep it under control. It's like a constant a battle that humanity has had and continues to have with its technology.
Yep. Yeah. And at this point, Halliday tells Wade to take his time. Don't let anybody pressure him. He says to choose wisely, which we know is a quote here. Wade disconnects, and then there's this great scene where he's running through the hallways, and you got to imagine these people are like thinking, what did we get ourselves into with this new owner running around through the hallway with this egg under his arm? He makes his way into his office. He locks the doors, lowers the blinds, and then decides to try out the device for himself. He looks over the manual and safety documentation, which is big on him for a teenager, because I can tell you right now, there is no freaking way I would have looked at any of the owner's manuals, safety precautions. Like most of us, we would have just plugged right in and just
like, we're just going to trust.
Yeah. And he even says that. He's like, why would Halliday's not going to do anything to me, right? He wouldn't hurt me. And, little did he know it wasn't really him that he needed to be worried about. But, and so the documentation, it kind of boils down to three things, right? These are the gremlin rules, if you will. You can't take the device off while you're using it, or you risk brain damage or coma. And you said that there's built-in titanium straps. Are these straps kind of going like underneath the chin to keep it from popping off?
I think. Well, that's I kind of left that for the reader to imagine. But when I imagine it being kind of like a face hugger in Aliens.
Yeah, right.
And once it's on, you can't get it off until it's released. And the straps are designed to tighten, like telescope and tighten around the contours of different skulls to hold itself tightly in place so that it can't get jostled and send the wrong signals to the wrong part of the brain.
Yep.
If you made a non-invasive computer brain interface that rested on the head, it would have to be. That was part of my research. It would have to be stable because the different MRI and squid technologies that would be used would have to be aimed at real tiny specific parts of the brain, and so the whole unit would have to be in place. And that fed into that was perfect for the plot that I had in mind.
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah. The second rule here is power loss to the device could result in harm to the brain. The internal battery allowed for an emergency shutdown in the event that occurred. And then third, use of the ONI headset was limited to a maximum of 12 consecutive hours, after which a mandatory downtime of 12 hours kicked in. This prevented the synaptic overload. Overlord. I'm thinking of, I'm channeling Howard the Duck, dark overlords of the universe here. Sorry. Synaptic overload syndrome and result in permanent neural tissue trauma. But as long as those three things were adhered to, you were fine, right? Nothing to worry about in terms of what was going on. So he taps the agree button and he's greeted with this new welcome message. And it says identity verification successful. Welcome to the Oasis Parzival. As the timestamp faded away, it was replaced by a short message, just 3 words long. The last thing I would see before I left the real world and entered the virtual one. But they weren't the 3 words I was used to seeing. I, like every other ONI user, had come to know, was greeted by a new message Halliday created to welcome those visitors who adopted his new technology, Ready Player 2. And I love the way that ended. Like, it was just like, oh my goodness. I mean, I was so excited I was excited about the book already, but seeing the words Ready Player 2 like that and the way you kind of let her off that way was really great. So awesome job on that.
Thank you. I worked really hard. I wanted that cutscene chapter to kind of mirror the chapter 0 and Ready Player 1 and the way it, sets up the story and takes you to a new place. But I also, wanted the naming convention and the level convention to be the same as Ready Player 1. So I wanted this kind of cutscene that bridged the 2 books. And then once he sees Ready Player 2, then he starts over at kind of chapter 0 again.
Yep.
But the levels of the story continue on from 1, 2, 3 to 4, 5, and 6. So that was my thinking with the structure there.
Cool. Awesome.
So Ernie, you have a very Kubrick way of like just embedding these little Easter eggs within your narratives, right? And you do it a couple of different ways when we're doing pop culture references. You might have the one that's pretty obvious so that it's digestible by the general public that is just familiar with the 80s. And then you have these little nods that are out there just for the deep cuts, for the true geekdom that's out there. And then you have some that I think are personal or just are in there for you. And when you put the log on complete and you have the date timestamp there of 11/07/18 OST 125/2046, do those numbers have any deeper meaning than that?
The login timestamp?
Yeah.
No, those particular numbers do not. Sometimes it's just a time that I make up, but I have hidden family members' birth dates and things in numbers like that before. So you're right on the money. I do stuff like that, but that specific one, that was I think not an actual numeric reference to anything. If it was, you guys would have gotten it. I'm sure.
Or we would have just made it up. If you ever watched the show, we'll draw lines that aren't there and make connections.
We have given you so much credit on this show for things that you've not done. It's amazing. You'd be
that's part of the fun. I do that myself. Like when I'm reading Tolkien or reading my friend Andy Weir's books, that's part of what's great about fiction, and it's different than movies, is you bring yourself to the story and you're helping tell the story with your own knowledge of things and your own imagination. You dress all the sets and it all happens in your head. And so some of the references that land, with you are specific to you and things that you encountered in your life. So I love that, and it's all valid, whatever the story, whatever I write conjures up in your head or whatever references it brings to mind. Like, even if I didn't intend it, it's still, that is intended,
Exactly.
I want the reader to bring their own experience to the story. So thank you for sharing that.
Cool. All right. Well, this is the point in the show where we're going to get into the pop culture references now. So let me pull that up and we'll get started in breaking this down. Just quickly, again, for those of you that are not familiar, we tend to, if you've already covered it in Ready Player One, we're not going to talk about it in Ready Player Two. In the show notes, we'll list out exactly when we've already discussed it. And there were some things that we cut out for time with Ernie here tonight, so we'll have to come back and revisit those as well. Let's move on. Let's get into the first one. And the first one's actually, I'm not even going to try to say this, Will, because I know we've been going back and forth on the stinking pronunciation of this name. I just call it existence, because it's just so much easier.
Saying existence, I'm not going to be able to say existence.
Existence.
Yeah. I'm not going to be able to say it properly if you keep giving me that.
But tell us about.
Have you not seen Existence?
Oh no, I've seen it. No, we've seen all these. Trust me. I just don't like the name. I have a problem saying the name, so I'm not going to try.
Cronenberg is an acquired taste, man.
Oh man,
you got to be comfortable with weird, organic production design. But that's what one of the things I love about it. But Existence is mind blowing.
Well, tell us a little bit about this before we get into the deep stuff here, the deep tissue.
Yeah, something about the year 1999. I don't know if it was the turn of the century was rolling up, but it was the year of virtual reality, right? Because 13th Floor came out first, and then Existence like right after it, and then The Matrix right after that. It was like a whammy of like
within 20 days, I think is what.
Within 20 days, those 3 movies were released.
Really? Yeah. So it was like, it's like Deep Impact and Armageddon, of virtual reality. Competing virtual reality movies, but I loved all of them and all the completely 3 different takes on virtual reality that were hugely influential for me. And what I loved about Existence was the video game designer element of it, and what Allegra Geller, played by Jennifer Jason Leigh, and just the weird little kind of video game. I didn't know Cronenberg knew that much about video games, but it was interesting, and it was an interesting depiction of virtual reality video games. And The 13th Floor, which I think is based on maybe one of the first virtual reality short stories that kind of depicted a virtual reality. So it was a great. And then The Matrix is like the holy grail, like the best depiction of virtual reality and such a rich lore. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm so pumped for the fourth one that they're making right now. They had to stop filming a couple times, but I know they're in Germany finishing it right now. So
yeah, December 21st, I think 2021 is the new official release date for that.
I can't wait. The Wachowskis, they just continue to blow me away. Did you guys dig Jupiter Ascending or?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they're amazing.
They're great stories. Yeah. I mean, and then the visuals with them as well. I mean, they're constantly pushing the envelope in terms of visuals and special effects, which is just great stuff. So Will, what's the synopsis here on Existence?
You're the king. Anyway, so here's what the story's about for those who haven't seen it. Single white female Jennifer Jason Leigh is the most successful biotech engineer and game designer and has created Existence, an incredibly immersive VR simulation. After a failed assassination attempt, Gigolo Joe of AI fame, Jude Law, who moonlights in public relations apparently, helps her escape into the game. And once inside, they meet up with Norman Osborn and are assisted by an old Bilbo Baggins. The rest of the film is about as linear as a M.C. Escher painting and equally hypnotizing. So much like Ready Player 2, this movie has stylistic choices that are nods to my favorite science fiction author, Philip K. Dick, specifically Three Stigmata and other classic science fiction that's paired with an evolved view of science fact. So, Ernie, placing this film and the others that we were talking about within the cutscene is about as subtle a foreshadowing as David Fincher splicing frames of Brad Pitt in the first act of Fight Club. Was that intentional?
Yeah, well, no, I wanted to bring the reader back into that mindset, and and I don't well, as readers of Ready Player One know, I wear my influences on my sleeve. I don't want to. I steal from the best, and I call out who I'm stealing from because I draw inspiration from them, and I want and if people are digging my storytelling, then I want them to go and read Snow Crash and Neuromancer and watch Brainstorm and Existence and and take because I think then that'll just further inform what I'm trying to do, because I'm trying to build on and take inspiration from all of this, but bring it into a modern internet era and take where we are now in 2020 and extrapolate that into the future, where these guys were doing it at the turn of the century, 20 years ago. And I've had the benefit of seeing the internet rise up and evolve, from this thing that we barely use to something that we all use every minute of every day, now. So it's growing and living through that time has helped me in my writing. It's just seeing how this technology evolves and using it myself as it evolves helps me extrapolate where it's going in the future, or try to.
Yeah. So, Will, on this one, the people are asking the chat. It seems like a lot of people in the chat have not seen this movie. What's your recommendation? Was this one that you would recommend for people to take a look at?
Absolutely, you should. So, and I think Ernie hit it on the head, right? If you're going to watch some Cronenberg, you've got to be in that state of mind. If you like The Fly, if you like Scanners, if you liked those movies that he made, Videodrome, obviously. So, if you like those types of films, you're going to love this. But I really think it is looking at virtual reality, much like The Matrix does, the 13th Floor does, and some of these classics look at it, but through a different lens, right? So it's great. There is, like we talked about, a lot of fleshy special effects in this. You'll see the picture there with Jennifer Jason Leigh.
Yeah, you need to stop that loop. I don't need to see that loop anymore.
Yeah. So that's the Biopod, which is arguably
disgusting, man.
It's the second least attractive controller next to the Nintendo 64s. That's where I'm going to put it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's move on. We're going to talk about the 13th Floor just quickly. So this was, again, we'd mentioned released 1999. This was directed by Joseph Fusnak, I think, or Fusnak.
Yeah.
It stars Craig Berko, Gretchen Mol, Vincent D'Onofrio.
Yeah. Come on, you cannot mispronounce it.
You're gonna kill me for that one. I know. Dennis Haysbert and Armin Mueller-Stahl. So the summary, real quickly: set in 1999, after the death of a virtual reality pioneer and company owner Hannon Fuller, one of his employees, Douglas Hall, finds himself a murder suspect. On the night of his death, Fuller leaves a secret clue for Hall in the virtual world set in the 1930s that Hall must winter in order to exonerate himself. Hot on the tail and looking for answers is the guy from the Allstate commercials, a detective who suspects foul play was at hand. At one point in the movie, Fuller's daughter, Jane Fuller, shows up, but it's later determined that Fuller never had a daughter. The movie culminates in Hall discovering that his world is nothing more than a simulation like the 1930s world, and he himself is merely a program. A host of other, as well as a host of other future people they're all kind of jacking into this world. The film ends with Hall as a program as he trades places with the future present day self in the year 2024. And he discovers that he's been modeled after the husband of the real Jane Fuller. This is so complicated. Jane created and modeled Hall after her now estranged husband and fell in love with the program. It's like all these movies, and they're really good. Like, I really enjoyed The 13th Floor. I had only seen it once before, and I don't even think I made it to the whole movie and I don't really remember the reason why. But as part of the research for this, I really enjoyed this. Like, it was much better than I remembered. And not if that's just because I've gotten older or the fact that I'm all hyped up on Ready Player 2 or what. But man, this was a pretty solid movie.
It was that way for me too. I didn't enjoy it as much. It was like my least favorite of the three, but just because it dealt with virtual reality and a depiction of virtual reality that is completely real and indistinguishable from reality. It's not something depicted in films that often. So it's since been depicted in a lot of films and television shows, and kind of the Star Trek Next Generation, trapped in the holodeck episodes. But I always love those. And so I love these different explorations of virtual reality. And that was the short story I was thinking of, Simulacron 3, which is one of the very first stories about a kind of immersive virtual reality, which I remember going and seeking out because of the film.
Yeah, there's in this book, it was a huge inspiration, right? I mean, even the characters, Hannon Fuller and Douglas Hall, they're actual characters from Simulacron 3. They make it into this movie. So it's loosely based on that book, but then there's also some inspiration coming from Time Out of Joint by Philip K. Dick as well. So it's been a combination.
Yeah. But, and then also the 13th Floor was the research and development lab in Max Headroom.
Yes.
So the 13th Floor is like a double whammy reference for me, both the movie and Bryce Lynch, as you guys know from Ready Player One's Wall, was one of my favorite characters. Kind of the 80s proto super hacker man was Bryce Lynch, and always in his lab on the 13th floor, hacking
away.
Yeah, some mainframe. I ate that up with a spoon when I was a kid.
There's some similarities beyond that. So both of them have obviously owners of companies that have created virtual worlds, right? Ready Player One versus this one, so Halliday versus Fuller. They both share this concept of avatars, right? In Ready Player One, you go in, you kind of yourself, but in this one, you actually go into another AI, like you take over their body. They're living a normal life, but you consume them and take them over for a short period of time. And then one of the other things is between this and Ready Player 2, in the 13th floor, you can't be in there any more than like an hour, 2 hours max. Otherwise, there's physical damage that could happen to your brain. So similar to Ready Player 2 with that 12-hour period as well. So, and there's one other thing in here. So this is the only part I want to really kind of touch on with this. There's a lot in here about, I guess, AI, artificial intelligence. And I want to get your take on the advent of artificial intelligence, and particularly around sentient AI. Is there a time and place that you feel like in the future that, one, we are not going to be able to distinguish between what's AI and what's not? And then two, do you think there's ever going to be a time when we're going to be able to coexist, or is this going to be like Skynet all over again?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I mean, I covered this in Ready Player 2, like Skynet, the Skynet scenario, or the Blade Runner scenario. The AI turns on its master scenario is a trope in science fiction, because I think it goes right to the heart of our collective fears about artificial intelligence. It's something that we want to create so badly, or some of us do, and we can't help ourselves but plow forward in the creation of it. Even though, the scientists who are working on it now have seen 4 or 5 decades of science fiction depicting the, horrible end scenario that AI could lead us to. And it's already, I mean, you can't stop progress to some degree, and it's already taking away people's jobs, and will take away more people's jobs the better that it gets. And it's improving our lives in some ways while it does this, but also making them more difficult in other ways. And I'm always fascinated with that push and pull of every new technology that can, make some part of our lives better could end up making some other part of our lives more more difficult, and it's the striking a balance between the good and the bad elements of a new technology is always really difficult. So I wanted to explore that in the story.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, we're just gonna skip over SOS because we're running out of time here. Let's talk about this one though, because this is gonna be a fun one. This is Tommy Two-Tone and 8675309. So the reference is, I punched in the 7-digit combination from Egg's inscription into the code pad beside the vault door, 8675309. A combination no self-respecting gunter would have trouble remembering. Jenny, I've got your number. I need to make you mine. So for those of you that are not familiar with this song was so Tommy Two-Tone was started by Tommy Keith and Jim Keller back in 1978. So those are the two gentlemen that you see there on the screen right now. Heath was the lead vocals and rhythm guitar. Keller was lead guitar and vocals. They had a number of band members that kind of came and went throughout the years, but these guys were the kind of the staples through all of this. And the band name, like, there's a lot of history here on the band name, and a lot of stories told as far as how it came about. But the short story is Tommy Keith was actually called Tommy Two-Tone growing up. When they started the band, it was called Tommy and the Two-Tones. They shortened that down to Tommy Two-Tones. And their biggest song is 8675309. Jenny, although, I know Will's going to hate me for this, Angels Say No off the 1980 album is a great, great track, as well as Rachel from 1980. So if you think they're one-hit wonders, check out those two songs, because those are pretty solid tracks, if you ask me. Ernie, is this like one of your favorite bands, or are you just like really like everybody else liking the song?
Well, it's one of the best songs of the 80s, and it's the only song that's kind of like a catchy numeric sequence, and it's crazy. This, what I love about this song is when it became a number one hit on the radio, it just created havoc in every area code across the country. Whoever had that number, suddenly every hour and minute of the day, they're getting inundated with calls of people asking for Jenny. And I always love that, that it was like a weird, it's the only song like that has a phone number built into it. And even now, that's like a coveted phone number to get. So I thought, when I was thinking of a combination, like what would be a combination that Wade would recognize, that isn't THX 1138 or something that I'd already done. And also I love the lyrics of that song have always kind of haunted me. It's, he's obsessed with this girl that he hasn't met, and he and the whole phrase, I've got your number. I don't know. That seemed to me, that song seemed to hint at Halliday's obsession with Kira.
Kira, yeah.
Not in as direct way as like the songs later that appear on the soundtrack of the book, like. Another one that's mentioned is later on is "Obsession" by Animotion, and that song even more so. The lyrics, I'm like, oh, this is perfect for Ready Player 2, because I think one of the lyrics in the song is like a butterfly, a wild butterfly, I will collect and capture you, and that's kind of what happens in this story.
Yeah.
And this too, Jenny, I've got to make you mine, or I'm going to make you mine, like. It's I don't know, it's kind of a stalkery, uncomfortable.
Oh yeah, he gets arrested in the videos. You can see
that. Yeah, well, he deserves to. He should just leave Jenny alone. He doesn't even know her. That was and it's just a great song, man. So I thought it was a perfect way to kick off the story.
Awesome. There's a lot of stories around who Jenny was. If you ask Tommy Keith, it was somebody that he actually knew and met in his life. If you ask the songwriter, Alex Call, he says that he wrote that sitting in his backyard under a plum tree. So it's just one of those things where over the years, who knows what's the real story behind it all.
Yeah.
But and there's a couple of different nods again in out there to 8675309. Garfield ran it for a while. If you've ever played Duke Nukem and you go into one of the bathrooms, 8675309 is written on there. That is the keypad, and you're on the right-hand side for Deus Ex. One of the entry codes you have to enter is 8675309. And then I found these as well. So on the left-hand side, this is from EverQuest. There was actually an magical armor called Jenny's Two-Tone Cuirass. And if you look at the stats, the strength is 8, stamina 6, intelligence 7, the dexterity is 30, and the charisma is 9. So kudos to those guys. That's a great little Easter egg.
Beautiful.
And then Neverwinter Nights, if you click down there over the BioWare, and these guys are Austin buddies, love these guys to death. If you click there, this message would pop up that says, contact BioWare in sector 8675309 of planet Earth. So
yeah,
its impact on pop culture is just, can't be.
Yeah, and whenever people are playing those games or, and see that number pop up, like, just takes it back, and then they got the song stuck in their head, and I love it. I love you guys dig all this stuff up for every single reference.
And not only that, so I went one step further. So I started calling area codes in all of Texas, trying to get somebody to answer 8675309. I called Austin first, 512. Nobody. It's Verizon. It goes directly to like voicemail or something. It's like a non-operational number. Waco didn't work. I tried 281-713 in Houston, San Antonio 210. I dialed 832-8675, and I spoke to a woman at Wedgwood Plumbing. Don't call them, guys. I mean, be cool about it. Be chill about it. But she was so generous.
Unless you need plumbing services.
Unless you need plumbing services and you're in the Wedgeworth Plumbing area or surrounding area there, Katy, Texas. They actually use this number, and you can see on the banner there, they actually have the little musical notes. They play this up as a way for people to remember, because, I mean, this is gold. These numbers have sold on eBay, and the transactions weren't allowed to happen. eBay didn't allow them to happen, or the phone companies didn't allow them. But there was one that went for $60,000 at one point. That was the final bid. But these numbers are very coveted because everybody knows the freaking song, right? I mean, you cannot escape it. Everyone knows it. So
yeah.
But yeah, these guys are really cool. I spoke to her, and she said, like you mentioned earlier, they get a number of phone calls every single day from people asking, "Is Jenny there?" So
yeah.
be cool about it. Don't reach out to her.
Yeah. Everybody's calling them right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, don't call them right now. All right, let's move on to Brainstorm. This is the 1983 film. Just the reference here: simulation technology. Simulation technology William Gibson had envisioned in Neuromancer, and a similar form of experience recording technology had also been featured in Brainstorm and Strange Days, two of Halliday's favorite films. This one was directed by Thomas Trumbull. It stars, the music is by James Horner, by the way, which everything that man does is amazing stuff.
Amazing.
Great audio, or great music soundtrack for this one as well. It has Christopher Walken, Natalie Wood, Louise Fletcher, and Uncle Ben from the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies. His name's Cliff Robertson. Let me give you the quick synopsis, and then I want to get your thoughts on Brainstorm here, Ernie.
Sure.
So before becoming a lucrative cowbell music producer, Michael Brace is a scientist on the forefront of brain-computer interface known as the HAT. The device allows someone to feel and experience the memories of another person, including emotions and physical reactions. This leads Michael Brace and his estranged wife, played by Maria of West Side Story, to reconcile their relationship through the sharing of each other's feelings until the good old US of A government steps in to militarize the tech. Nurse Ratched is also in the film and is a lead scientist on the Brainstorm project. But just before she dies from Marble Red's induced heart attack, she records her complete experience and death and her ride from hell to heaven. And just as the project is about to be completely taken over by the government, Michael hacks into the lab and remotely sabotages the technology that he was working on. This film ends with Michael reliving Nurse Ratched's final moments and nearly entering the pearly gates, but not before his wife Maria calls him back to Earth. So that's the synopsis. I love this movie, and I was shocked that it didn't do well by a lot of different standards. Like, this is a pretty solid flick, in my opinion. But I mean, I think the influences are pretty apparent here. But when did you first see this movie, and what kind of an impact did it have on you, either growing up or as you were writing Ready Player 2?
Well, I rewatched it several times, while I was writing Ready Player 2 for inspiration, because it does such a great, it's amazing to me this was made in the 80s. And Douglas Trumbull, who directed it, is a big special effects guy who worked on Blade Runner and Star Wars. And they shot the VR sequences, the first-person VR sequences in this film in a different kind of widescreen film format. So when you saw it in the theater, like the screen would open up and become much wider during the VR sequences and make it more immersive. And he was really stretching the boundaries of what was possible with film technology at the time to make you feel more immersive. And Strange Days then just kind of took that idea and built on it and took the story in a different direction. But what I loved about this is kind of like watching the accessibility research lab that I described in Ready Player 2 of
yes.
them, because you see them invent the technology and them testing it out, and then you see them develop it and create smaller versions of it, and see the headset develop from this thing, Christopher Walken, this big clunky thing he's wearing at the beginning, and then it gets stripped down to just the hat, which is just like a little band that you like Walkman band that you put on. But they do an amazing job of displaying the technology and different facets of the technology. And this is from the 1980s. And this is great, so whenever you guys see people online saying that Ready Player 2 is inspired by Black Mirror episodes, it's people who have not read or seen any science fiction other than Black Mirror. And I love Black Mirror, but it's drawing inspiration from a lot of the same stuff that I'm drawing inspiration from. And these guys were real, along with William Gibson, who wrote Neuromancer on a typewriter before there was even a word processor. He was imagining kind of brain-computer interfaces and immersive virtual worlds that replaced the internet before the internet even existed. So I was standing on William Gibson and Neil Stephenson's shoulders, but also Bruce Joel Rubin, who we talked about earlier, who wrote this. Bruce Joel Rubin, oh my God, one of my favorite screenwriters, wrote Brainstorm, which is amazing. He wrote Ghost with Patrick Swayze and Whoopi Goldberg. I think he got nominated for an Oscar for that. And at the same time Ghost was being filmed, he was making a Adrian Lyne film called Jacob's Ladder, which is one of the scariest.
Oh, it's creeped me out as a kid.
Movies you will ever see. Just haunting, with Tim Robbins and Danny Aiello. That's a great movie as well. And then he made a really sweet little movie that a lot of people didn't like, but I love, called My Life, and it's a Michael Keaton movie. It's really interesting. It's a kind of a sad story, but also really uplifting. And he's a real interesting guy because he writes about the spiritual side of technology. And these are, like his other films are more spiritual, but in Brainstorm, I thought it was fascinating because it was examining the human side effect of this technology they invented. Like the guy who invents it, Christopher Walken, or helps invent it, it immediately has profound effect on his own life and allows him to communicate with his wife and kind of see things from her perspective with his ex-wife. It's really fascinating, and he approaches things in such a human way and examining the way technology affects people's relationships. So Brainstorm is just amazing and profound and a huge inspiration for me for Ready Player 2. And I knew that since virtual reality technology had kind of caught up with, by the time I started writing Ready Player 2, it wasn't science fiction anymore. I was using virtual reality all the time. So I knew that the technology to access the Oasis, I wanted to upgrade it. And I knew I wanted to kind of do something like Brainstorm. I took inspiration from Brainstorm and Strange Days and Neuromancer, but also Sword Art Online. You guys do?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
A huge Sword Art Online fan. I got to meet the writer and creator of Sword Art Online when I was in Japan promoting Ready Player 2. And we just geeked out on virtual reality through a translator, and had so much fun. So, I take inspiration, from everyone, and I try to pay tribute to the, and not pretend that it's my own. That's why I often just shout out the people that I'm drawing inspiration from, because I want people to seek out their works and draw inspiration from them too.
Nice. Yep. Okay. I'll give you the next one here. This is Weebles. We're actually going to break down Weebles here. The bottom of the egg was weighted, so it wobbled slightly before standing perfectly upright, like a Weeble. Weebles wobble, but they don't fall down. So, Will, tell us what you got here about Weebles.
Okay, released in 1969 by Romper Room. Yes, that Romper Room, the same one as the children's show from the 50s to the 70s.
I see William. I see Ernie. I see.
I was exactly today's years old when I found out that Romper Room was like regionally done. Like the Romper Room that you and I saw. Well, technically, all three of us saw different Romper Rooms if we ever watched it. Yeah, crazy.
Oh wow.
But yeah, they're all just.
She never said Ernie.
She never said Albert. I was always mad.
Mirror, Romper Stomper, Romper Boot. I was waiting. Never saw Ernie. The Magic Mirror didn't reach to my house, apparently. But anyhow, I didn't mean to interrupt, but just a bitterness I had to air.
No problem. So a lot of nostalgia associated with this, but this isn't what, to me, Weeble Wobbles are about. This is it. Right?
Yeah, the physics.
It's the physics. Seemingly simple. The lowly Weeble has a place in explaining the principles of mechanical equilibrium. It answers the question as why a Weeble does wobble but doesn't fall down, but an egg wobbles and does fall down. Right? And I think the way that you can look at this is that, interestingly, the Weeble's center of mass is below its centerline curvature of its vertex. But due to the suspension...
Okay, we're moving on. This is where I'm gonging you. Bye-bye.
You know what? You always...
So Halliday's making this egg, and he doesn't want it to fall over, when his air finds it. So he's going to want the egg to remain upright. And I'm sure the first thing he thought is like, oh, it should be like a Weeble. So that's why I shot it out Weebles. But I appreciate you going into the physics.
I don't.
You see that?
Yeah, I don't. We're moving on.
Cylindrical symmetry, constant positives.
No, see, this is what happens on the show. He gets into these like scientific things. I'm like, dude, I don't want to talk about this stuff. Let's get into the pop stuff.
You guys are a good team.
That's why you skip synaptic fatigue. That was I'm telling you. I guarantee you, Ernie Cline has done an incredible amount of research on it just to figure out what the impact would be of that and how it affect you relating to age and neurological conditions.
Okay, we moved on. Here's Strange Days. We'll kind of breeze through this because we've already talked about it enough here, but directed by Catherine Bigelow, came out in 1995. It was written by James Cameron and Jay Cox. Cameron started it, Cox picked it up afterwards and kind of finished it, took it over the finish line. It stars Ralph Fiennes, Angela Bassett, Juliette Lewis, Tom Sizemore, and again, Vincent D'Onofrio. There you go.
That was better. Yeah, that was better.
I stuck the landing on that one, just barely. Let's see. Let me do the summary. So, set in a dystopian future of 1999 and slightly more appealing than the world of Mad Max, Voldemort, played by Ralph Fiennes, is a former cop and now a pusher of recorded memories, senses, experiences, all stored on a whopping 210 megabit mini disc. Voldemort's ex-girlfriend Faith, played by Juliette huge in the 90s Lewis, not only refuses to wear undergarments, but also discovers their mutual friend is being chased by the LAPD while she was wearing a squid. Through a series of twists and turns, Voldemort and two of his closest friends, Mace, played by three-time Miss Olympian Angela Bassett, and Max, played by Tom Sizemore of Pauly Shore's Dead fame, discover a cover-up by the LAPD, Faith's record label Mongo boyfriend, and his best friend Max after the police officers kill a well-known rapper named KRS-One. I mean, Jericho-One. Voldemort throws Tom Sizemore off a building at the end. Faith runs off to join a nudist colony, and Mace saves Voldemort from being killed by the cops, and then confesses her love for him as the two kiss on New Year's Eve of the year 2000. So that's Strange Days in like 60 seconds. If you've not seen this movie, this is a great movie, and I really like what
you just spoiled the whole thing.
That's all we do.
Yeah, so you spoil one movie after another.
Oh, it's horrible.
Awesome. Here's how it ends.
But Catherine Bigelow is like Angela Bassett, by the way, all joking aside, is freaking phenomenal in this movie.
The first time I saw Angela Bassett, and I was blown away.
Dude, she is a beast. And Bigelow
they're all great. This, I think, was before the Matrix came out, or with the Matrix, it's like one of the best cyberpunk movies made, up to that point, and really had a real cyberpunk undercurrent, even though it's set in, at the turn of the century. It was kind of it seemed like an alternate year 2000, a little more advanced than our year 2000, obviously. But yeah, I just love Strange Days. But yeah, it's hard to believe that stuff would all fit on mini discs. But mini discs was like all the rage. That was new high density technology.
Oh sure, yeah, it flopped. I mean, Sony couldn't sell these things for a while there.
But yeah, that was my thought. And these guys would jump in and out of the squid simulation just by ripping it off your head, kind of like Brainstorm. But I always thought, if this thing's transmitting at your brain and you yank it off, mid dive, are you just going to regain your senses, or would there be like a process that you would have to go through to transfer you between using this technology and then waking up from it? It would be like going under anesthesia to some degree, because it has to shut down your conscious mind to take control of all your senses. But Strange Days does it in an interesting way, where if you keep your eyes open, you see double. So people keep their eyes closed. And they're still it seems like they're feeling two things at once. They're feeling things in the real world, but also feeling what the people in the recording experience. So I wanted to go into drill down deeper with my version of this technology and have it not just be for recording human experience, but also experiencing virtual reality, fake experiences or constructed experiences would be another way to use it. Because if you could my thought is if you could have this technology that's depicted in Strange Days and Brainstorm, then you could record any kind of human experience, like a WAV file, or a graphics file. It would be an asset that you could then create. And in a simulated world like the Oasis, you could, if the user picks up an apple and tastes it, then you just pull up the assets related to how an apple looks, tastes, and feels, and you would be able to recreate that perfectly in the simulation, by taking kind of little pieces of recordings of other people's lives. You could build a whole immersive world. So that kind of took, this technology as a jumping off point and imagined, my future version of it.
And this movie does only one other question for you. It really kind of pulls the Band-Aid off on like showing us what immoral and unethical entertainment can be, right? And there's this horrible scene here. I didn't put anything graphic in here where someone is raped and murdered, and not only is the murderer recording what he's doing, he's putting a squid on the female so that she can have her recording as well. And you touch on this a little bit in the book, maybe more than just a little bit, but just the ethical the ethics of it all, right? And what should we be allowing to happen? Do you think that's something we need to be thinking about now in preparation for that, or is that something that's going to be an afterthought after the technology? Because
it's better if it's not an afterthought. We're dealing with
right.
It be an afterthought now. Like we invented social media and unleashed it on the world, and only now, after 10, 15 years, like, oh, wait a second, maybe we should regulate this. Like we do television and radio. Maybe this really powerful propaganda machine shouldn't be used by anyone to spread disinformation. Maybe we need to regulate it so it's not used for evil. And that's the same. We have a nuclear regulatory commission because we have to regulate the use of nuclear power because it's really dangerous. And all of our technology is like that. And sometimes we don't realize it right away. We think it's just all good, but then only later do the negative sides of the technology reveal themselves. So that's why I kind of wanted to have a jump in time after the discovery of the technology in Ready Player 2 at the beginning, have a jump of a few years forward to see how it's playing out further down the road, and how the adoption is going, and how are people reacting to it, and how it's changing society, because it would be a gradual, not an instantaneous process. It would be a gradual process of adoption and working its way into the culture, and then the ramifications of people using it would slowly manifest themselves.
Yeah, great stuff there. There's plenty of other stuff here. We're going to skip over, but there was a Dry Me scene or quote that's a throwback to Blade Runner. In Blade Runner, Dry Me. Let's do this just quickly. We're going to play a quick Gunter game. So Ernie, I don't know if you've heard this before. We do a quick game on this thing. What I'm going to show you here. So Ray Fiennes obviously plays the character of Lenny in Strange Days. There were a number of other actors who were potentially up for this role of Lenny. So what I'm going to do is put up a picture of a famous actor, and I want you guys to tell me. We'll alternate between you and Will there. But you need to tell me whether or not this was true or not. Was this person thought to be potentially playing Lenny in Strange Days? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to give you the first one, Ernie, since you're our guest here. But this is Arnold Schwarzenegger. Was he considered for the role of Lenny?
I'm going to say no way. There's actually a great almost novelization of Strange Days. James Cameron would write these things called scriptments, which are kind of half a script and half a treatment.
Yep.
Yeah, and he published this shortly after Strange Days came out. It was kind of his raw version of Strange Days, and so I read his early conception of Lenny, and Lenny is always kind of a skinny guy who he's an ex-cop, but I don't know. I don't see Arnold ever playing Lenny. Although, knowing Hollywood, they may have since.
Well, I was going to say, these are being influenced by a lot of the producers.
I've got an incredible amount of range. I can act in comedy. I can do dramas. I can be in action films.
Yeah. So I can see Arnold lobbying for it, and I can also see the producers saying, "Oh, you made Terminator with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Terminator 2. You must be friends with him. I'm sure you could get him to read the script." And James Cameron saying no. And there are lots of scenes in the story that don't work if that character is on
right. Exactly. Yeah. All right. So what do you say? 50-50, or do you want to phone a friend?
Yeah. I'm going to say there's no way.
Okay. The answer is yes. He was actually considered at one point. So that would have been a very.
You almost threw in the movie. Whoever considered it. I love Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's fantastic.
Okay, Will, this is yours. Denzel Washington.
My man.
My man.
I'm gonna say no. No.
The answer is yes. He was actually considered at one point for this role.
He got Virtuosity instead.
Yeah. Ernie, you got Beetlejuice here.
Oh,
Michael Keaton.
Michael Keaton, I could see it. He's a versatile actor. That guy can do anything. So
yep, you're right. That's right. He was actually considered for the role as well. Will, you've got what's his face here? Tom Cruise.
Considered for every role.
Every role that comes out.
That's an automatic yes.
Cruise is the question.
Some of the female characters in the movie he was considered.
Oh, really?
I don't know, but I'm gonna say yes.
It was. Jeff Bridges, Ernie.
Oh, I think Jeff Bridges may be too old at that time, but I don't know. I would love to see the dude as Lenny Nero. But
the dude.
I had the dude originally on here, but I was like, let me go back to the 80s and pick Tron. But
yeah, Clue. He was great as Clue. I just heard they were updating his CGI Clue in Tron Legacy to make it more deep fake realistic.
Yeah.
But, I'm digress. I don't know. I think it's a possibility. Anything's possible in Hollywood.
The answer is yes.
Yes.
Yeah, he was considered as well.
All right, good.
If you're seeing a trend.
Yeah, there's clearly a trend. I'm going to go yes, sir. For the remaining slides, they're all
everybody was up for this role, and they all not apparently until it got down to the guy from Schindler's List,
Bruce Willis. Kurt Russell was also considered at one point for this.
How great would that have been?
That would have been amazing.
Man, any movie would be better if Kurt Russell.
You tell him, old Jack. Chet. Bill Paxton.
Oh, he would have been great. I miss Bill Paxton, man. He was
incredible actor.
Hey, and Tony from T-Bird.
Why don't you check the yellow pages?
See, did Strange Days come out before or after Pulp Fiction?
Pulp Fiction was in 92.
Yeah, so Strange Days was 97. So I would say
95.
Strange Days was 95. So
95.
Albert and I didn't go to the opening because that movie opened October 13th. That was the night of my bachelor party. And Albert was my best man. So
yes, it was.
Travolta was on fire in the mid 90s. They were just giving him movies left and right after Pulp Fiction. So maybe.
Yeah, he was considered, I guess, at some point in there as well. This was Juliet and the Licks. This was a band that she did. We're out of time, so we're going to move on past that one. Will, do you want to talk about this one, or do you want to move on to the questions?
No, let's get some Gunter questions in here.
All right, we're going to go to... Sorry, we're going to skip through all of this. The Matrix, we've talked about enough times. There's so much in there. I mean, we could spend an hour talking about the Matrix. But let's get into the questions. I know we've got some questions here, Ernie. I know you just got a few minutes left, so I want to definitely get into that. Let me get this out of here. And the first question we have is, so this is from me. So earlier this year, you removed all of your social media accounts. How much of this was fiction imitating real life versus real life imitating fiction? And I know when this happened, like Gunters were like, "Oh my gosh, this has got to be connected with like the big game that's going to be coming out for Ready Player 2." But what was if you could, what was the story behind that?
Well, it's more like me trying to practice what I preach. You know, like I had these social media accounts to help promote my books and releasing my books, but I never used them to do anything other than promote my work. And then after the movie got made, I think a lot of people saw my social media accounts as like a way to get at Steven Spielberg or through that. So and I wasn't using it anymore. I felt bad having this like supposed like a portal to reach me that I never checked or used. And also, I have, especially this past year, grown like more and more convinced that it's just a toxic force to have in your life. If you go out on, looking for the dopamine rush of the good stuff on social media, you have to wade through all the negative stuff too. And the negative stuff it has, whether or not you even just ignoring it, like you still take some of it in, and it's still, I urge everyone listening to think about whether or not you feel good after you've looked at social media. If you walk away like feeling refreshed and like, oh man, I just love humanity and, we're headed in the right direction. Or if you're like, oh my God, how people have gotten so comfortable being so mean to each other, and it's because of the filter of the internet. It strips away people's humanity. It also strips away irony and sarcasm and a lot of other things. So I just, I just wasn't using it, and I didn't feel like I felt like I wanted to set a good example, for other people. And I'm like, I kind of rail against social media a little bit. And if I still have social media accounts, even if I don't use them, it'll seem a little hypocritical. So I just decided to do the purge, earlier this year, to not have, mostly because I didn't want people to try to be reaching me through outlets that I wasn't checking. So it was more, I wrote all that, but then it occurred to me, I'm like, I should follow through on this in my own life, and maybe get rid of social media for a while. And I tell you guys, there's just a spring in my step and a smile on my face a little bit more every day since then. But some people really get a lot out of it, especially I get it during quarantine, using it to stay in touch with your friends and feel like you have a community when you're not able to socialize in person. I get all that, but like the technology that I explore in my novels, there's like a good side and a downside. I think each person has to weigh, like, is this good for me in my life? Just like the O&I, and I think, or just like virtual reality or any technology that you use, like, is that right for me? Is that going to improve my life or make me a happier person, or will it, have the opposite effect? So, that was my reasoning. Hopefully I answered that.
No, absolutely. Yeah. You got time for a couple more questions here?
Yeah, let's go.
All right. Well, you got the next one here.
Oh, all right. So, Ernie, what I love about your writing is that you integrate true science into near fiction, an attribute that reminds me of two of my favorite writers, Crichton and Card, right?
Oh.
Both of them. And so I'm referring to you now as the three C's, all three of you together, of science fiction. So as we talked a little about and skipped over our discussion on synaptic fatigue, but it plays a significant role in the book. And so I'm really interested in knowing how you researched this topic when you were developing the plot arc. I mean, do you know a guy? Did you Google something? Or did you draw from existing science fiction only?
I was lucky in that because of the success of Ready Player One, I was able to reach out to people who were working on brain-computer interface technology, real scientists and medical professionals and venture capitalists. Lots of different people are working on the BCI for different reasons and different applications. And already they're experimenting with it. They have people, like I said, doing human trials, people who are willing to have a bone saw taken to their skull and have it cut open and electrodes inserted into their gray matter. Some people, if if they wanted to control prosthetic arms, or maybe blind people trying to see, I get those people doing it, but having elective brain surgery for entertainment purposes seems like a big stretch. So that's why I wanted to make my technology a non-invasive computer, because that's when I think when it becomes non-invasive and you don't need to have surgery to do it, then like Brainstorm or Strange Days, then it would anyone would be willing to try it. And once you tried it, then you would become addicted to it almost immediately, especially with all the different applications that I depict. So, but I was able to talk to different people and about some of the side effects, and that was one thing that they seem to agree on, is that you wouldn't be able to use it nonstop all the time. It would have to be in short bursts. And so I tried to strike a balance, and it seemed like half a day would still be a lot, and you would need that extra time to do what Wade does, which is exercise your physical body. And I could already it was also a way for me to show the way that I've already see people kind of living their real lives in service of their virtual lives, where people spend, and this used to happen when I was working in IT jobs and tech support. I had friends that were like playing World of Warcraft in the cubicle next to me on a separate laptop while they're taking tech support calls, and they, gold mining.
That was me. That was me. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, those were the days, man. And also that was when I saw people falling in love inside World of Warcraft and forming really strong relationships with people that they had never met. So, all of that. I
didn't mean to cut you off. I've been to a wedding, like in real life, and then we had the wedding in World of Warcraft as well. And I get what you're saying. Like, there are so many people that I know that I'm friends with today from World of Warcraft, because if you think about it, I spent more time with them than I did with like personal friends and even sometimes my family members, right? And I was knowing all things about them. We were on chats, and you would hear what's going on, and you'd ask questions while we're raiding of like, hey, how's it going with the kids? And I mean, you just build these extremely tight bonds with these people, and you've never seen them, which is fascinating.
Because you go into battle with them.
Sure, absolutely. I've died for many people.
Yeah, you save each other's lives, and even though it's a simulation in a game, like it mirrors real human experience, and that just like being in combat in reality, it like bonds you together with these people. So that's what, and I do think that's one of the reasons why I try to capture that feeling in Ready Player One, and people who have had that experience and become friends, with somebody else through their avatar and through their own avatar, like you get it. It's a new kind of human experience that didn't exist when we were kids, and now now it does.
Albert's the original Leroy Jenkins, just in case.
Yeah,
that was him. Yeah. That was him.
Yeah.
Just a quick question on the writing process. I want to know a little bit more about how you do this. And we spent a lot of time getting into the pop culture references. And so really the question is, do you find yourself focused on writing the narrative first and then going back and filling in with pop culture? Or does one drive the other? What does that look like for you as you're coming up with these books?
I try never to make a list of things that I want to like reference and then shoehorn them into the story. I try to reference pop culture the way that you do when you're talking to a friend who's into pop culture. And so I try to tell the story, and then as things occur to me in the story to reference pop culture, I try to include them organically. Like I'm thinking about this egg shaped thing that holds the O&I headset, and how it would, if it was egg shaped, it would tip over. So it would have to be like a Weeble. And I'm like, I'll just go ahead and say it's like a Weeble. People will get that, and it'll be a fun. So I didn't have Weeble on a list, and where can I fit Weeble into Ready Player Two? It just occurred to me as I was writing that scene as a way to describe it, because I view pop culture as just another tool in my palette, as a writer to add to the story. And because pop culture is our culture and the culture of, everyone that I know and all my friends and a lot of my fans, we all grew up with this kind of same shared pop culture and wandering the same digital landscape of the same video games and the same VHS tapes and the same internet websites. All of that creates a shared common experience between people. And I love when other writers, would reference that, because it would make me feel like I existed in the same world as the characters. So that was, that's my thinking behind pop culture. So I always try to do it organically, except for the bigger set pieces, like Tolkien or Prince or things like that. That requires more thought and a deep dive into, research. I have to do serious research for stuff like that. And because, especially with Ready Player Two, because as opposed to Ready Player One, which was Halliday's interests, were kind of all the riddles and puzzles and clues were based on Halliday's interests. In this novel, they're more based on Kira's interests, which are different than Halliday's and also different than mine. And I made a conscious choice to choose things that I was not necessarily a super fan of. I was a fan of Tolkien and a fan of Prince, but and a fan of Ninja Princess and other things that are in the story, but not a super fan. And I wanted to make sure that I captured the spirit of, or the concept of these challenges being created by someone who was a super fan and would know all the deep little minutia, which is hard. You kind of have to. It's hard to amass all that knowledge in a short period of time, as opposed to over years, like most of my other knowledge. So
yeah, we find the same thing when we're doing the show. Like, we're cramming in, trying to, like, some of the stuff we have never experienced, and we end up spending so much time playing these games and really getting into the fine details so that we can actually speak to them intelligently about what you would expect or hear.
That's part of that's part of the fun.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Hey, so I've got 1 minute left. So I want to get to 3 questions, and this is going to be like a quick lightning round thing. So just 5 seconds or less on these questions. The first one is, when writing the pop culture references, how much research do you have to do, and how much do you just pull from memory? And that's from Tflu99.
Yeah, I kind of just answered that question. Almost all of them I pull from memory and try to include them organically. But kind of the bigger stuff where I go into a lot of detail on one subject, that requires a little bit of research, and I have to go read all of Christopher Tolkien's books of lost tales, of his father's unpublished manuscripts, and get all the details of the stuff like that. Does require a little research, but that's part of the fun of it for me, because then I get to geek out a little bit while I'm writing the story. So, all
right, T Bickle 2011 says, were there any pop culture references or icons you wish could have been included in the first book or film? and did not include them after the story or characters. Did it impact the story or characters in any way by not including them?
Let's see, in the book or the film. Well, no, I included everything that I thought of in the book. There was nothing stopping me from including anything in the first book. Other people were upset that I didn't mention certain things. But
Mario.
Yes.
Super Mario
Brothers.
The only thing in the film that was even a minor disappointment, which I don't even think of as a disappointment now, is Ultraman. Like, I still, some part of me still, would have loved to see Steven Spielberg directing Ultraman.
Yeah, right.
Versus Mechagodzilla. But seeing him direct, Gundam RX 78 against Mechagodzilla with the Iron Giant pitching in, that was enough to make me happy. And the Iron Giant and the Gundam, were both mentioned in the story, just kind of brought to the forefront. And I love that, like taking things out of the background of the book and putting them in the foreground of the movie. I love that. So no, I was not really disappointed.
Okay, the last question. Seeing how important Tolkien is to Kira's story, is there a film adaptation of Ready Player 2? Would you rewrite it so that Aragorn and Arwen in Lord of the Rings, or go something completely different?
Yeah, I would. I don't know. I would want to keep it the way it is in Ready Player 2, especially since, like, I have always wanted to see the story of Beren and Luthien adapted.
Yep.
And they did take elements of it in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, but not the Silmarillion and the stories told in the Silmarillion are some of my favorite stories in Tolkien. Yeah. And Tolkien and Middle Earth is, that's the proto fantasy world, the most detailed and fleshed out fantasy world I think any human being has ever created. And we're lucky enough that he shared all of it with us, but just so deep and rich, as deep as you want to go, like it feels so detailed, and the history of the world so detailed, and the languages and everything. It's just it's the best example of that. And like I mentioned in the book, like the source of so much, of Game of Thrones and so many other fantasies, stories, and modern fantasy just owes a debt to Tolkien, but also Dungeons and Dragons. Like Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson, those guys were trying to gamify Tolkien. They were taking the same kind of party of adventures in the Fellowship, and that's every Dungeons and Dragons party ever.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And that's such a I wanted that was something I felt like I could have paid more tribute to in Ready Player One. So I was excited to get to do my own tribute to Tolkien, but to kind of an obscure corner of Tolkien that hasn't been explored by the films yet. So hopefully
you're getting lots of love for it. I don't know that there has been fiction that's really integrated the Silmarillion into anything like this. It's probably the most alive that story's been, and I think because of that love story angle, it was very well done.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so glad you guys dug that. That was the part I was most nervous about, was the Tolkien stuff. I'm like, oh my God,
you killed it.
Yeah, thank
Seriously.
you.
But I think you said this on countless reviews. It's if you're looking at the pop culture references for any section, I might have nods, because Albert and I obviously don't agree on like every pop culture reference. Like, he is far more into anime, Gundam stuff. We did one episode that was entirely just Japanese television shows. And so I ended up having to watch like 7 consecutive days of these shows. And I'm like, how did I never find these before? I mean, they're amazing.
Oh,
right?
like Decatur and
Oh yeah,
Spectre Man.
Yeah,
stuff like that.
all of them.
It's so much fun. I'm envious. That makes me feel like I can do that. But no, I love that. That's one of my, that's one of my favorite parts, is paying tribute to all the stuff that I love and turning people on who are into the same stuff, who I think, who are fans of Ready Player One would also, might dig this, or, and so it's part of the joys of writing a story, is to take everybody on an adventure, but also turn them on to, the stuff that inspired me to tell stories like this. So,
awesome.
So cool.
Well, hey, Ernie, I know we're over on time, and I do apologize. Thank you.
I'm having so much fun. If you guys got more questions, I've been looking forward to this, and I thought I might be tired because I've been doing interviews all day, but
yeah,
I'm talking to Gunters, so I can't.
I have 4 more questions from Gunters, and these are from the official Ready Player One Facebook group and other groups. Okay, let's just do it. So, what parts of Ready Player One do you look back on writing and really enjoy the work you did? And were there any parts that you felt were more challenging to write? So this is similar to what you kind of mentioned here with Ready Player 2, but this is from Jude Philpott.
Well, it's hard for me to go back and read my own writing, but do enjoy. I went back and listened to the audiobook the first time, and that's the one way that it kind of allows me to enjoy the work, because it adds Will's interpretation and his reading of the story to it. So it's
so good.
He surprises me sometimes. It makes me laugh with his performance, of something. He brings his own sensibilities to it, and he's like a month apart from me in age. He has the same, cultural touchstones and all the way through. So I do. I think that's the time that I enjoy revisiting Ready Player One, is hearing Will read it, and I wouldn't change a thing. I would be afraid. It would be like going back and tampering, Marty McFly tampering with the past. Change something. The butterfly effect. You might change something unintentional. So I would leave it the way it is. But thank you for that question. Let's see.
Hey, Albert, I've got one from one of our live.
Oh, you got, okay. What is the question? We'll come back to Chris.
So this was actually pretty interesting. I hadn't really thought about it, but Douglas Johnson asks, hey, it would be pretty cool if you were to publish a real almanac, like what they're using, a collection of notes that were used for both the first and second book that all of the high fives using throughout. Have you considered doing that already?
Yes, many fans at book signings have asked me if I'm going to publish Anorak's Almanac, and it never occurred to me. Wouldn't that anyone would want to read that, because it would be a challenging writing project, because it's basically kind of Halliday's diaries and his brain dumps, in his private blog for decades, and stuff maybe he never even intended for people to read until after he was dead. So, it's possible, maybe someday I might write that. I do have a kind of a notebook that's, that would be a good quote for Anorak's Almanac, and I'll put it in there, and then I kind of divide them up. But I have, I think I've got like 114 chapters or something.
Oh my goodness.
Book. It's pretty, no, I mean, like when I'm quoting different parts of Anorak's Almanac, I think I've established it's a pretty enormous book as described in Ready Player One. So to have it be accurate, but I might do that. Like William Goldman, when The Princess Bride was not a real book, but then he went and wrote it because of the, people wanted him to. So, anything's possible. I don't want to rule out doing it someday. And because then if I do, then people are like, he said he was never going to do that. So, maybe I will.
Can't win, man. You can't win.
Douglas says, take all of his money. He's going to fund it himself. He'll fund it.
There'll be a GoFundMe here soon.
Right on.
Would you ever consider doing an animated series for Ready Player One? That's from Christopher Lafayette.
Oh yeah. I would love to do an animated series. I loved when they did those. The guy who did Cowboy Bebop did one of the prequels for the Blade Runner, the new Blade Runner 2045. Did you see that? There was a great kind of animated prequel to the new Blade Runner 2045 that was done, and I loved the Animatrix.
Yeah, we didn't get a chance to talk about it, but that's solid stuff.
Yeah, so good. So I would love to get Japanese animation studios involved to do something really cool like that. But I love animation tie-ins to movies. There was a Tron after Tron Legacy. There was a Tron.
There's an animated series that came out.
Yeah, Elijah Wood was in.
That was so good.
Yeah,
it was on Disney XD is where that came out.
Yeah, man, it is a golden age for cartoons. These kids now, they've got Avengers cartoons and Spider-Man cartoons and Hulk. I'm so jealous. Yeah,
and new Star Wars every week.
What is that?
I was waiting years.
Yeah, Star Wars every week, like a new Star Wars movie based on Boba Fett TV series. It would have blown my mind. It's blowing my mind now. That's what the Star Wars DeLorean is. It's like my Razor Crest. I don't know if you guys see, but I added laser cannons to the top.
Let me get you on a solo here.
Oh yeah,
look at that.
You can't quite see them, but I've got mock-up laser cannons at the top, so when the doors come up, it locks X-foils into attack position.
Nice.
But I'm still working out the kinks on that. It doesn't look as good when the wings are down, so it's part of my. I haven't been using R2 to answer any questions at all. I feel bad, but R2 says hello, everybody.
I'm actually waiting for that era. I know it's in the past, Albert. Don't correct me. Of the Space Force because it doesn't look like health and wellness was a high priority for that military rebellion. I could just be Porkins, just rocking it out.
Yep,
I'm going in.
We'll take anybody. Y'all
I've got a
are
Crown
welcome.
and Coke in my hand.
Here I go.
Hey, Ernie, just 2 quick questions left. Would there be any, with the possibility of a Ready Player One tabletop RPG? I'm down for that, by the way, or even just a board game.
Yeah, no, that would be awesome. I know that Warner Brothers holds a lot of the game rights, but I don't know if they have the tabletop RPG rights. But you can always use GURPS, man, or some
make up your own. Yep,
you can make your own. There's nothing stopping you. You don't need anybody's permission to. I know a lot of people are already doing Ready Player One style campaigns using different rule systems. You could use the old Cyberpunk rule systems, or GURPS Cyberpunk, or any even Dungeons and Dragons rule system, whatever rule system you like, you could do it. A board game would be fun, though. An official Ready Player One board game, that would be
killer.
That would be awesome.
There's actually a whole Discord channel. There's a Discord server that is just Ready Player One. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's got a ton of people on there.
So is this background that you guys have, is it from the Sansar virtual reality?
Maybe, but we may not have asked them to use it. So
that's totally cool. That's totally cool.
I'm out of here.
Yeah, that's still up there. If anybody hasn't had it, hasn't checked it out, the Sansar virtual reality, it's free, and you don't actually need a VR headset. You can just use a web browser to go. You can go visit H's basement, and Lena Waithe went in and narrates all the different stuff inside the basement.
Yeah.
And describes it. It's really a lot of Ready Player One fans don't know about it.
It's mind blowing. Like, I love all of the pictures. I've been in that. And if anybody asks, I'm telling them you said it was okay. So just making that clear.
And have you gone into the H's workshop where there's like, that's so much. It's
they went all out on that stuff.
Yeah, and they made a lot of people didn't know they made like an Oasis beta. It was for the HTC Vive, but it'll work on an Oculus. And there was, they had a few Ready Player One VR games that were pretty cool. So I wasn't sure if you guys had. This looks like it might be a still from the movie. I can't tell if it's still that you guys have in the background from the movie or from the.
No, it's from the game.
From the VR? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right, here's the last question, and it's a doozy. Is there active work being done on the Ready Player 2 movie? Realistically, what's the soonest we could expect to see the sequel, if and when it happened? That's from Fando.
Yeah, I would love to be able to answer that question, but Hollywood's kind of in stasis right now. There's this pandemic going on. They can't even release the movies they've already finished. So things are kind of in a holding pattern right now. But there was a lot of interest after the first movie, and I think once things return to normal gradually, that there's a good chance, but you never know. You never know until it happens. But I have high hopes. It would be amazing to get to do that again. And it was hard to keep that out of my mind while I was picturing some of these set pieces. It was hard to be like, oh man, this could actually happen. This could actually happen. We could actually see this depicted in and realized at an amazing cinematic level. So I would love to, see Ready Player 2 adapted into a film.
As would we. Yep.
Yeah, but I will tell you, from my experience with the film the first time around, there's nothing like the experience of reading the book and having the story play out in your own imagination, because that's the best special effects platform there is. Still, and I want fans of the book to know that like a movie adaptation doesn't take anything away from your love of the book. Your experience and your version of the movie that played out in your head is always going to be there, and it's never the same. Lord of the Rings, Wizard of Oz, they always have to change things to adapt the story, and it's never like a one-to-one, transcription of the source material. What the best you can hope for is a tribute, kind of a greatest hits of the story that captures the spirit of it and then makes you want to go read the book or explore more of the story. So I know it's hard for like some fans to separate their love of the book and the movie, but for me, it's apples and oranges, and you can love both and appreciate what both are trying to do without, one taking anything away from the other. So
yeah, yep. Albert and I routinely talk about, our experience, like, because you're basically directing the movie when you're reading the book to yourself. So we typically exchange like, okay, so in the last chapter of Ready Player One, when they're doing the awkward hands holding to kissing scene, and I'm asking Albert, like, what music were you playing in your head when you saw this? Like, because for me, I was playing the walking outside scene right at the end of 16 Candles. Like, that was the music that was playing when he walks up there. And so it's that.
Yeah, well, because you, like I said, you bring yourself to the story. You're one of the directors of the story, and it's your imagination, and so you build all the sets in your head, and you deliver all the lines, and you animate all the characters. So it's never, when you see somebody else do it, even if it's Steven Spielberg, it's never going to be quite like you imagined it, and it's some people see that as an affront to their imagination, like they imagined it right, and now the film is imagining it wrong. When it's it's just repackaging the story to make it cinematic. So hopefully, but I love that you guys appreciate both.
Yeah. Just quickly, anytime somebody's talking on the Oasis, like this overhead noise or somebody speaking, I get Gauntlet, like the game Gauntlet, where it says like the Blue Warrior is low on health. Like that's what I hear every time. So to your point, we kind of add our own flavor to this.
And the needle drops were really cool in this book. That was like, I didn't even have to do that anymore. Like, bloop, there's a needle drop. Yeah. Fantastic.
So I knew that from, just from John Hughes. One of the things I love about John Hughes movies is his use of music. And he was a big, audiophile and record collector and looking for just the right track. And he would, his use of music in films is like unprecedented. So that was fun to, create the kind of, that's always an idea that I've had, knowing that Shermer was this shared world connected through all his films. I was like, oh, that would be the perfect, kind of Oasis environment, and the ultimate, him being one of the ultimate 80s directors, it would be a great, so I'm glad you guys dug that. And the soundtrack was so much fun putting it together. It's like greatest hits of, various John Hughes movies.
So when the sequel gets made, because it will, for me, it's just a math problem. Like I'm not one to prognosticate, as Albert will attest to. I don't sit here and try to guess what is the meaning. It's a math problem. This is a math problem. Congratulations on your film. It's going to be fantastic. Albert and I are available for extra roles.
Yeah.
I'll send you our writer. It's blank. It's just this is a blank writer. We don't need anything.
Thank you. I hope so. I'm trying to take it a step at a time and enjoy just having this story out in the hands of readers. And this meant so much to me that you guys wanted to have me on, that you've been, like I said, I really appreciate you guys keeping the fandom of Ready Player One alive after the release of the movie and kind of building up people's anticipation of this, and giving people, who enjoy or, maybe don't have other fans of Ready Player One around them in their life, like giving them people to geek out with, on every single facet of the story. It's like exactly what any writer would hope for. So I'm so appreciative of you guys and everybody watching it at home, all the Gunters out there, and everybody who participated in the contest and, came out to book signings. It's really bumming me out that I don't, this is usually part of the process of getting to put the book out. I get to go out and, hang out with my fans in person and, let people sit on the DeLorean and take pictures and, geek out with them. And it's like part of the catharsis of putting the art out into the world. So I'm bummed that this is the closest I get to do that, is talking with you guys. But hopefully we'll get to do it maybe next year when the paperback comes out, fingers crossed.
Yep. Well, you're thanking us, but really thank you, Ernie. Thank you for these books, all of your novels. And certainly for taking the time with us to be here tonight. Again, I know you've got a crazy busy schedule. The fact that you were able to do this with us is absolutely humbling. Can't thank you enough. So
it's my pleasure. I had so much fun hanging out with you guys.
And congratulations again on the success of Ready Player 2. That is not a small feat.
Thank you.
And thank you for keeping the show under 3 hours, which is typically what we're running at once we get into the weeds.
I know.
I got to go to bed. You guys can keep going.
No, we're gonna get out of here too.
So much fun. I gotta come back and do this again some other time. But maybe when we have movie news, we can get together and again and talk about that.
Sounds good. All right.
Sounds awesome.
With that, we'll leave it there. We'll be back next week to break down chapter 0000. We're gonna do the whole thing all over again. Only Ernie won't be here. But please join us for that show as well. It'll be next Wednesday. And that's it. We'll see you guys next week.
Right on. Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye, Ernie.
The views and opinions of the Basement hosts are of our own and are not in any way affiliated with Random House or Ernest Cline. All quotes, music, sounds, trademarked, and copyrighted material referenced in the show are owned by the respectful companies and creators and are used by the Basement as fair use for entertainment purposes only. It would take me a month to read this whole disclaimer, but sad to say, I don't have that kind of time.